What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to Celtics Talk Weekly post game show, post game live. I am your host, Rob Tan. Joined with me are all my great co-hosts, Franco, Seamus, and guys. The Celtics, they drop one on the road in the knockout round of the very first ever NBA in-season tournament, 122-112 to the Indiana Pacers. Game was close. Boston leading up by 9 at the end of the first half, and Indiana, or by 7, my apologies. But Indiana, that third quarter run, that 37-24 third quarter, put Indiana in a position to take down the Celtics. Jason Tatum was the leading scorer tonight for the Boston Celtics. He had 32 points. Jaylen Brown. How about this, guys? The Celtics have now only lost 2 games in the Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown era when they both score over 30 points. Tonight was one of them. The other loss came last year in December to the Cleveland Cavaliers. That game was in overtime. So worth noting here, the Celtics next game will be on Friday versus the loser of the Bucks-Knicks game. You guys know the drill. Our initial thoughts, our initial takeaways for tonight's loss in the knockout round, Franco.
I mean, it's the early heartbreaker, man. I know it's only December, and Adam Silver, congrats to you for creating this tournament once again. It had us on the edge of our seats. It's one of those things that we really had big hopes for as Boston fans, but Indiana at the end really wanted this one. Earlier on in the season, without Tyrese Halliburton, who was an absolute major factor tonight for the Indiana Pacers, we were able to beat them on our home court by around 50 points and run up the score to 155 points. And then they decided to retaliate against us tonight, and they had home court advantage. They are moving on to Las Vegas, and they are one of the hottest offenses in the league. Their depth was firing on all ends, but the Celtics were just plagued again by that third quarter flu that they get by Joe Mazzulla. I don't know what adjustments are being made at halftime, if there are
I don't think
any,
any. Yeah, I don't think any.
but I really just think that this is a really good kick in the butt to this team that has such high aspirations to win a championship. Yes, it's only December, but if this is the attitude and energy that is brought in April, May, June, we might be having some different discussions.
Go ahead, Ian. You can take this one. I don't know. I don't know if you want to go to me next.
I don't know. I mean, it's an in-season tournament. Who really cares, honestly? I mean, the Pacers, they played great, and that new in-season tournament trophy looks great. But we're playing for the Larry O'Brien Trophy, so it's all good. Pacers can have their Mickey Mouse in-season tournament champion, and yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I'm just being sarcastic. Yeah, it's just the same old story with the Celtics. They play good in the first half. They go into halftime, just completely fall apart in the third quarter. They're officially the worst third quarter team in the NBA now. They're even worse than the San Antonio Spurs. And then they just got to hope they can come back in the fourth quarter. And they tried to come back in the fourth quarter. They had a lead at one point. And the game was tied with 2 minutes left, and they just couldn't get it done. And the Indiana Pacers they outplayed the Celtics, and that's pretty much it.
I mean, I feel like the third quarter adjustments need to be made. I mean, to be as good as the Celtics are and be as bad as they are in the third quarter, I don't know if it's a rotational thing. I don't know if it's an adjustment thing. Something tells me it's a coaching thing, because out of the half is when adjustments and coaching is made. However, the Celtics, I thought they played well 3 out of the 4 quarters. But the problem is that one quarter that we played terrible, it was bad, and it was really bad, and we allowed Indiana to get that momentum going. Again, I said this before the show started. It's a game on December 4th versus a playoff caliber team on the road, in which last time you saw them, they were missing their best player and they got embarrassed at our place. That was fuel to the fire. This game, Indiana played with they just wanted it more. And if you want to hate on Boston for that, you can. I think it's pretty fair that every game you play should be going out there 100%. I think it would have been really cool to see this team go to Vegas and potentially represent the Eastern Conference in the in-season tournament finals, and the first one ever. You want to win every game you play. It's not realistic, but at the end of the day, I do think that third quarter needs to be addressed, but it's not the end of the world. I'm not putting, again, too much stock into this game. It's game 19 or game 20. I'm sorry, and it was. It was a tough one, and credit to Indiana. They played a phenomenal game. Their second half defense, clear adjustments were made. Can we address that real quick? The adjustments that Indiana made, locking down and really causing problems on the perimeter drives from Boston. I think that was very apparent. I think every fan saw that. I think every coach should see that as well when it's happening. However, listen, you just got to get better. End of the day. And luckily, it's only game 20, and the NBA playoffs aren't, win or go home. So credit to Indiana. They played a hell of a game. Tyrese Halliburton, guys, is the real deal. No doubt about it. Have a triple-double at home. I mean, he shows every sign of being a superstar in this league. So, Seamus, that's my little spiel on this game.
The Celtics, I have no idea why people are pointing towards the fact the Indiana Pacers, this is a tournament meant for them, meant for the young teams, not meant for the veteran teams going for the title. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? Tonight was a playoff atmosphere, right? Tonight
Right.
was a road game playoff atmosphere for the Celtics. Gamebridge Fieldhouse was absolutely ruckus tonight. Absolutely ruckus. The court's different. They have the rally towels out. Those aren't regular season things. Those are postseason things. And the Celtics go into that building and we see much of the same woes happen to the squad in which we talk about here every time they lose. Every time they lose. And this one's a little bit different, of course, in the style in which they lost. But some of the numbers and some of the problems are a bit the same. And some of the moments, too, in which they happen, particularly the third quarter. The third quarter. The third quarter.
Right.
I mean, the third quarter. Can we look at the lead tracker real quick?
Go
Tonight,
for
this
it.
third quarter is absolutely abysmal. You see the Celtics actually, I talked about this earlier this season during a post-game segment. The Celtics established their biggest lead of the game. I believe it was against the Orlando Magic in the in-season tournament. In the in-season tournament, so another playoff atmosphere-like game on the road. The Celtics established their biggest lead of the night, and what do we see immediately? It's gone. It's pretty much gone. Right before halftime, they can't surmount anything on top of it. And then going into the third quarter, just a complete and utter turnaround. 16 lead changes. And what's terrible about that is that there were 13 in the first half, and in the second half, there were only a few. And obviously, the Indiana Pacers started to take off at a certain moment in time. But the Boston Celtics, I mean, me personally, I want to see them come out in this game, compete, be able to hang on to a lead, and actually make it a game all the way down to the end. Now, it was in the full scope of the game. However, you see, we lost by 10 here. We lost by double digits. And for me, the Celtics, I want to see them be better in these type of atmospheres and scenarios, because even though this team has gone to the NBA Finals, they played in a lot of big playoff games. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have been involved in a lot of big playoff games. They haven't won the NBA Finals yet. They haven't won. So to me, the Indiana Pacers, a team that, yes, may not be completely ready to go on a run and win a championship yet, the way the Boston Celtics are constructed, you still want to see them compete, because the Pacers haven't won. The Celtics haven't won. Who's to say next year the Pacers aren't right there? Who's to say at the end of the season, what if the Pacers make a move at the deadline, bolster their roster a little bit, and they're actually a favorable opponent, or, formidable opponent rather, in the first or second round? And these things matter too for the Celtics, because talk about resting and avoiding extra minutes in games in the playoffs. That's so huge. We see it every single season. When the Celtics went to the NBA Finals 2022, the Warriors played less games than them, less competition heading up into the finals. By the time the finals came around, what were the Warriors doing? They were more physical than the Celtics. They were out rebounding them across the board, and they could just do more with both ends of the floor. Fast forward to next season. Well, what happens with the Celtics again? They go down 3-0 to Miami. Why is that? Miami's a physical team. The Celtics have to play extra games against both the Sixers. They have to come back down from 3-2. And in round one against the Hawks, they could have easily closed out that game 5 at home, made it a 5-game series. Instead, they have to go on the road into Atlanta and play an extra game. Well, take a team like the Indiana Pacers. Maybe they don't beat Boston over a 7-game series, but then we come into their building like a night tonight. We see the atmosphere. The Celtics, they control part of the game. It looks like they're actually surmounting a little bit of lead, a little bit of momentum going into halftime. Instead, it's just completely killed. The Pacers go the other way. And the Celtics, I worry just a little bit for the Celtics, this style of play, them running up and down the court. Other teams constructed to do so. The Celtics, they certainly need to keep up offensively and defensively. I do think when the bench comes in, and during moments in which now we don't have Kristaps Porzingis, of course, we see our lineup is a little bit thin and maybe not meant to play such a way. Teams outrun us. Orlando outran us. Indiana outran us. And these are teams we're going to see in the playoffs. And I know that we just hold this tag of, okay, we're above everybody else and the advanced metrics point towards us and yada yada. Well, these teams are going to compete against us and make it very, very hard to win the championship. And I still believe at this point in time, the Denver Nuggets are the team to beat. And yes, we can say, oh, yeah, we should be the favorite, but there are teams out there hunting for us. The competition field is arguably as hard as it's been for the Celtics in the last 3 seasons. And there's still I really think there could be a dynasty forming out west if Jokic continues to stay healthy his entire career, and he has a point guard next to him. But the Celtics, I didn't like what I saw from the team tonight, particularly in the form of just losing another lead, and just letting Indiana completely, completely take the momentum of the game and run with it. The Celtics, I want to see them, if they're going to be a team that goes and competes for the title, they have to go on the road and win these tough road games in front of road crowds. And so far this season, in front of some of these environments, we think about Minnesota, we think about Philadelphia, we think about Orlando, we think about tonight, right? In Indiana. These are all games in which the Celtics lost. These are all games where the other team is very physical, very fast, very young, and very competitive as well. They're in front of all these road crowds. All these end up in losses. And I think these are the games the Celtics are going to have to win later on down the line in the playoffs if they want to win a championship. So, yes, we're beating up on all the teams in between 15 and 5. We're still very good. This is not drastic. I want to say this. It's not drastic. It's not drastic. We're 20 games into the season, 15 and 5. The Celtics are still in a good spot. But as time moves on, the 5 losses, you want to see those type of losses be wiped away from the board. And honestly, I enjoy, I don't want to say I enjoy, but I almost welcome some of the dumb losses that come over time. And I want to see us, grab a game like this.
Well, here's my question. Does a Celtics loss tonight do more for this team in the long run than a Celtics win?
Definitely. I feel like this team getting this loss under their belt now, especially with this new roster, I don't know how much I know that JB and JT understand the sting of the last 2 years, watching the final buzzer dribble out on their home court and watching confetti fall down on another team. We know that sting. I'm not sure if players like Kristaps and Giroux understand just yet how important the winning factor to this year is going to be for this team. And I'm sure that this team knows that it's win or die when it comes to next offseason, because who knows what our conversations are going to be if there isn't another banner being raised after next year. But I just feel like a loss now is going to highlight and reflect what this team needs to do to improve, which it's kind of been very obvious over the past few games. And when they lose, as Seamus said, we keep on losing to the same things. The unrestricted 3-pointers, taking any 3 possible to try to gain any grasp of momentum. There are so many times tonight that the team had an opportunity to take that one extra step to the inside. I sound like an AAU coach right now, but those inside shots and driving to the paint, I mean, Indiana was playing great defense on the perimeter, but as we saw in the beginning of the game, they weren't protecting the paint as much as we would have thought they would, and it looked kind of open throughout a lot of this game, and they were kind of challenging the Celtics to continue to play their ball of, yeah, we'll let you shoot about how many threes we'll let you shoot 43s tonight because you've only hit 12. I mean,
Well, that goes back to my point, in which what happens when the shots aren't falling? Is there ever going to be a moment where the Celtics say, okay, this isn't working? You have to resort away from this. And I think that, again, that's coaching. That the ability to say, okay, guys, hold on, let's hone in on the paint. I loved the Celtics going to Tatum in the fourth in the post. And I will credit Joe Mazzulla here. There was a play in which it was 99 to 101, and the Celtics needed a bucket in the fourth quarter. Mazzulla called a timeout, drew up a play, got Jaylen Brown a bucket. So that's growth right there. So credit to Mazzulla there. However, it feels like every Celtics loss, it's just like, okay, it's coaching. And again, that's not the only reason, right? At the end of the day, the players are the ones playing. But it's like, Ian, you sent us a graphic the other day off Twitter. I forget whose Twitter it was, and it was players around the league's efficiency and field goal percentage scoring around the rim. Giannis around the rim shoots the ball at a 78% field goal clip. Jason Tatum is second behind him at 74%. That means that Jason Tatum is as efficient and as effective and as dominant at driving to the rim as Giannis Antetokounmpo is. Yet for some reason, there is 8 threes a game coming from Jason Tatum. I don't mind him shooting the ball because again, when he's on, it works. But he needs to know, okay, it's not working. And I get it, shooters shoot, this and that. But get going in the paint. Jason Tatum from 3 tonight, 2 of 8. From 2, he shot 11 of 18. That is a significantly higher clip. And I just think that, listen, as much as I do believe Joe Mazzulla, causes a problem and there needs to be Mazzulla fixes, I do also think there needs to be personnel and player fixes in which, listen, Tatum, you're the one shooting the ball. And I do think that's a problem. But at the end of the day, again, I still am confident with this team. I am. I think the past couple weeks has gotten me questioning some things in terms of the success that this team is going to have come April. It's still game 20, so we are still 5 games away, technically, off my Rob 25 games theory that you know where a team's at and 25 games in. But I mean, I don't know. I'm still confident in this team. The one thing that scares me, however, is the coach. The coach really scares me. And something that's stuck out to me tonight, guys, was that third quarter. When that run was happening, there were no changes made. It was the same thing. We're doing the same thing every single time down the court. And Indiana's over here changing their defensive looks, changing their offensive schemes, on the fly, just go. Okay, Boston, it's like a chess match, right? And that's what the playoffs is. It was a playoff-like atmosphere. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, why aren't there being any rotational changes? Why aren't there being any game plan changes? Where is the scheming that is going behind what the Celtics are doing right now? There's just no change happening in game. And I think that for a team with championship aspirations, that's a real problem. And again, all you can do right now is circle it, bookmark it, and check in on it through over the course of 82 games. However, that's something that I think needs to be circled in bright red and bookmarked with a big, old school bookmark with a nightlight on it too, to make sure that it's highlighted and everyone can see it in the dark just in case, because I do think it's a big problem for us.
Yeah, I mean, I can't blame the entire loss on Joe Mazzulla because obviously it's not him out there playing. It's not him, missing wide open layups and missing wide open shots. It's not all on him in that case scenario. But I feel like at some point you do need to talk about the lack of second half adjustments. And this has been a thing basically his entire tenure as the Celtics head coach.
Correct.
And last year we were able to say, oh, it's his first year, he'll figure it out. But I mean, we're a little over 100 games into his coaching career, and the problems still seem to arise. And it's not only in the losses, it happens in the wins as well, unless we completely blow a team out by 50. But it's just, there's a great saying, you do the same thing over and over again, expect a different result. It's the definition of insanity. So it feels like the Celtics keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, trying to expect a different result.
But
and
it's new
driving
though,
everyone
right?
insane.
It's not the same. Do you think it's the same from last year's team? Because I think it's a new problem they're doing over and over and over again.
I mean, they still sucked in the third quarter last year too. There were still
Did
plenty of
they?
times, especially in that Heat series, where they would
Yeah.
have a lead going into halftime, and you would think, "Oh, there's no way in hell that the Celtics
Right.
are keeping
But
this lead."
I feel like last year's team's real problems came with late game executions. I do think that's improved, or do you not think so? I think their late game execution.
I think the late game execution has improved a little bit. I
Mhm.
think it's a personnel change is the reason as to why. Because I mean,
Right.
let's be honest here, every single final shot was going to Marcus Smart anyway. But and I'm not saying that's all bad. Marcus Smart had hit some shots, but sometimes he would miss them. So I'm just saying it seems like there are just constant things. And I know we're only 20 games into the season, but there's just constant mistakes that we keep seeing over and over again. And I don't know. I don't really know. It's just one of those things where you kind of have to look at it. And
And
I defended Joe Mazzulla at the beginning
right,
of the season. I thought
you
he was
did.
going to be great. I made a whole video defending Joe Mazzulla. But I don't know. I'm starting to. I don't know. I don't think
It,
I'm losing faith in Missoula, but it's just making me look into it more and question more things.
I feel like it's just like at what point, if there is a point this season, because again, this is the highest stakes for the Celtics have had for a season. I mean, you could argue in the 07-08 year, there were some high stakes there, but even still, if they didn't get it done, there was a new team and you give them another year, you didn't give up. I just feel like, personally speaking, where this team is at, the stakes are so high. And I don't know if there's room to not do it this year. And I get it. If they don't do it this year, I still think they can do it with this core because, again, it's the first year being together. But I just think that the stakes are so high. And I said this about Luke Cornett, and Luke Cornett proved me wrong. So maybe I'll say this about Joe Mazzulla, and I really, really hope he proves me wrong. But in a season in which it matters so much and there's so much on the line, guys, you have this guy coaching your basketball team. Isn't that like, and is there a point this year where it's like, okay, even though we're the one seed, you can't roll with this guy? Or, I mean, right? How bad does it have to get? Because I'm not saying they're going to fire him. I'm not saying they should fire him because right now, I don't have, it's too early, I think, to have an official opinion on this guy. But I mean, it's just like, we're going to be good in the regular season. We know that. We're going to win a lot of regular season games. But is he the guy to get you over the hump? That's the question. With a team that has struggled for the past couple years at getting over the hump, is Joe Mazzulla your championship pedigree head coach? Because I don't think he is.
I think there's a chance. I'm really happy with the assistants they've brought in.
I agree.
I mean, that's going to be huge, and I feel wrong for looking at it this way, but I'm kind of looking at Mazzulla as an NFL coach would look at his quarterback. Growing pains. Plenty of growing pains are going to happen. We can't use this excuse anymore, but he's had a full year under his belt, but
Correct.
He's still a very young coach. I mean, I'm not sure of Mazzulla's exact age, but he's still in his 30s. I believe, is he younger than LeBron? I don't want to be misquoted saying that, but
he is. I want to say he's 35, 36.
Yeah, but he's still a very young guy. Sam Cassell is a proven coach.
Correct.
Charles Lee, proven coach. And these guys have done it before, so hopefully they can show him more and more. Maybe we see those guys unspokenly take a bigger step without being the head coach per se, but let's say Sam Cassell grabs the team for a practice early morning and Mazzulla is not really the one in charge of that. Maybe they see more things themselves and they want to make those adjustments themselves. I
Right.
hope Missoula is open and willing to accept any
But
criticism.
here's my problem, Franco, right? Is that Missoula has brought a clear game plan and scheme into the Boston Celtics organization. It's clear as day. An offensive scheme that is going to shoot a lot of threes and get stops on defense. And the threes should outweigh the twos in the long run. That is really his game plan, his scheme. And when they're falling, they are literally unbeatable. When your shot is falling, when the Celtics are making their shots, excuse me, they are genuinely unbeatable. If they're shooting the ball at a high clip, you won't beat them. It's when they're not making their shots, which is more times than not, right? Statistically speaking, they're only going to make 36% on average. Then they're an extremely vulnerable, beatable team. So it's like, okay, well, if you're playing, I know Missoula's an analyticals number guy. If you're playing the analytics, if you're playing the numbers, it makes no sense to live and die by the three because the analytics suggest you're gonna shoot 36%. You just are. That's what we shoot as a team. And if you're gonna shoot the ball at the highest clip in NBA history, the Charlotte Hornets did it in 95, 96. I've said this. The modern day was the Golden State Warriors, who were built on a perimeter-centric, high volume, high efficiency three-point shooter with arguably the two greatest three-point shooters of all time. So it's like you look at the game plan here for Boston and you're thinking, okay, we're shooting the same amount of threes as the 15-16 Golden State Warriors. What the hell are we doing? Our best player on the team is as dominant in the paint as Giannis Antetokounmpo, statistically wise. It's like, well, that doesn't check out. So again, I do think those things you gotta circle them and note them because I do think as good as the Celtics are going to be, they got a big, there's a big vulnerable attack method to this team, and I think that they have to tap into that because I'm still very confident, but I think they got to check that at some point.
They just look like a team who, to me, start out games exactly how they should play the entire game.
Right.
That's exactly how they start out games. And most of the time, that never persists throughout the entire game. And there's always a moment in the game in which it can go one way or the other. And the fact that we're sitting here 15-5 is pretty good considering we have had a couple of losses that have ended not exactly in the most comfortable result possible. But looking at this game tonight, Indiana and Boston, I do worry just a little bit. A lot of the NBA, evolves over time, right?
Right.
We're going to see a different style of basketball in 10 years than we see now. The style of basketball we see now is completely different than what we saw just a couple of years ago. And I do wonder just a tad. Now, Boston is leading in a lot of key numbers. They also lack in a couple of key numbers across the league. But I do wonder if this Indiana Pacers style of basketball actually has some sort of efficiency effect on the rest of the league where they're just scoring at a high rate every single night. They don't go for offensive rebounds at all.
Right.
They don't turn the ball over at all, too. And their pace, obviously playing the Pacers and seeing some of their results, their pace is just ridiculous. And I really do wonder in games like this and against opponents like this, if the Celtics can really hang with these type of opponents, especially in moments of the game in which there's adversity. We talked so much 2 years ago. when the Celtics were making their run about overcoming adversity. And what gave me personally so much confidence in that 2022 Celtics team
They always answer.
Throughout the regular season, they always answered down the stretch into big moments and big games. Always. There would be a big moment, a big game. The team would respond constantly. And even after losses, that was such a big thing about that team is that even after terrible losses or losses that probably shouldn't have happened, the next game they come back and respond and play the way that we thought that they could play.
Through 48 minutes, too. Through 48 minutes.
Exactly. And this team, they're a consistent team, I will say that. But sometimes the consistency within their consistency is not great consistency because
Correct.
these type of third quarters We do not want to see them persist at all, and it has to do a little bit with second half adjustment. But I do want to throw this out here too, in regards to the team. I know that in Celtics land, the bench maybe has received more praise. Luke Cornett played just fine tonight. He
I thought
really did.
yeah, he did.
Better than
Sam Hauser was nice tonight. Peyton Pritchard was not.
Yeah.
Everybody else was not a contributing factor. And you just look at our bench, you have Cornett and Hauser, who, for their standards, played all right. But really, relative to the rest of the league, whatever our bench guys are doing relative to their standards isn't necessarily matching up with the rest of the benches in the NBA. And that's just a fact. And I went to StatMuse for this, and I was going on here, and I wondered, so, who's first, who's last, who's wherever in bench scoring this season. And, well, look who's at the top, number 1 and 2. Number 1, Orlando, not a surprise there. Number 2, Indiana, two of the deepest teams in the league. You might just argue that, see, this is where with Indiana we should be scared. They have a legitimate star in Tyrese Halliburton. They have that depth. They're young, competitive. They have that crowd. Like, why? That's a competitive team in the playoffs. But I look at this list, right? Those two teams are at the top. The Celtics, I don't even know where they're at. Because,
wait, can I ask you, Seamus? Where's Minnesota? And where's Minnesota? Where's Philly? And then where is one other team? Who else did we lose to?
Charlotte.
So scratch out. But where's Philadelphia and where's Minnesota?
Okay, so Minnesota is, let's see.
I don't know if this is going to prove your point, or maybe I'm harming it, but I'm curious about that.
They're like 5th. They don't give me a number on here. They don't give me a ranking. They're like
middle of the pack,
15th, 16th. I would say on here, and then the Sixers are in the same category as us, it appears. Okay, so this is what I was gonna make upon our point, and it's kind of surprising the Sixers are not, I don't know, higher on this list. It feels like the other day they were missing 3 starters and still had like 7 solid NBA players that they could play in their rotation. So I feel as if they have a pretty deep roster, but the Celtics, you can't even see them because for some reason, right, StatMuse locks a certain amount of the data if you don't subscribe to StatMuse, which I guess I'm just giving it away. I'm not a subscriber to StatMuse, but the last 3 teams they don't give you, and I don't see the Celtics on this list, which means we're either 30th, 29th, or 28th, it appears. So in terms of bench scoring, just raw bench scoring, the Celtics are not exactly amongst the league leaders. And I do think our guys on the bench, relative to the standards in which we expect from them, the expectations, right? I think they do well. But then you look at the rest of the league's bench, right? Or the benches around the league, right? All of them are arguably better than the Celtics. And I will throw this out there. In the third quarter, the Celtics are just being killed by other teams' benches. And it's not even it's almost like a domino effect where it might not even be the fact that we don't have a comparable bench to put in. It's not the fact that, oh yeah, we're matching our bench with their bench and our bench is just worse. It's more the fact we don't have certain minutes out of our bench that they have. And it could get to a certain point where, oh yeah, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, instead of coming out of the game, letting a bench member, 6th, 7th, 8th man come into the game, those guys, we don't really trust those guys in higher minutes the way other teams do. Correct. And in those moments when other opponents bench, they come in, they're playing with high energy, they're playing competitively, they're running up and down the floor, they're playing physically. And in those moments, the Celtics, if they're not matching with their bench or don't feel comfortable matching with their bench or even are matching with their bench, maybe Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Porzingis, Holiday, they're not ready to go up against that energy right there. They need a rest. Something needs to be configured differently. So there are a lot of things that could factor into why the Celtics.
Right. And I do think
be third quarter, like their third quarter woes are happening. But I will say, I think the bench is a little bit of an issue, or at least the lack thereof.
I do agree. I do think that obviously once you strip one of those top 6 guys, we get really thin. However, normally you have Porzingis in there, which I think is really big. Slotting Al down to the bench is big time. I wouldn't be shocked if they made a move for a bench guy. It's really tough because financially we're in a hole. But
But ownership
again,
said they would spend years ago. It was if
no, I
years
agree.
ago
So
with Wick Grosbeck. I mean, you don't
no,
have
I
Ime
agree.
Udoka anymore.
And
Brad's in the
again,
front office
I
position.
think that the name that should be considered is Peyton Pritchard. I think Pritchard has value on the market, and a name that soars out to me is Alex Caruso. I think Alex Caruso is a phenomenal defender. That's a name that you go explore those types of players, and I think I agree with you. I do think the bench could be a problem, but again, however, in April, when teams thin their rosters down to 8 in their rotations down to 8, I love our 8 versus any other team's 8. When Porzingis is there and you can play the Porzingis Al big man, and Cornette doesn't really. Although I will say this, Seamus, don't sell Cornette and Hauser shy. They played two hell of. Cornette was phenomenal and Hauser was phenomenal as well.
Well, I'm not necessarily selling them short. I'm saying that if it's like specifically tonight, it's just those 2 guys.
Right.
It's just those 2 guys, and it's not like they're the most versatile guys in the world.
Yeah, they stick to what they do best.
Lineups.
Right.
So it's like they are fine. Like to me, they're fine, but it's like, okay, well, who else are we going to? Oh, there's not really. It's like Banton, Brissett. I don't understand why he doesn't get more of a run, quite honestly. Yep. And after that, it's Pritchard. I mean, Pritchard obviously does get much of a run, but we see these nights he goes 0 for 5, and it's like, all right, well.
Yeah, so no, I agree. So I do think the bench, and I think that's something that Brad Stevens will do. Again, Brad has shown this offseason. He showed everyone. He showed this is Basketball Nation and Celtics Nation that listen. We're gonna do what it takes to win. And that's been the message very loud and clear. So I'm not really worried about it. But at the end of the day, guys. I do think what it comes down to is execution. And, Tatum and Brown, they got to be better. And something we haven't talked about, guys, is the turnovers. Turnovers have been terrible. This Pacers team is awful at defense, like bottom of the league bad at defense. And the fact that the Celtics were that careless with the ball, and the Pacers playing one of the league's best defense were that strong with taking care of the ball, something jumps out to me. Tyrese Halliburton is being used as the point guard, and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are being used as the point guards. The Celtics need to steer away from this. The ball needs to be in Drew Holiday and Derek White's hands, facilitating more than it is with Brown and Tatum. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be questioning why I say that, but they haven't proven to me that they can consistently, through the course of 82 games, take care of the basketball, make the right play every time down the court, put the team in the best position to win. Drew Holiday and Derek White have. So I really do think that, from a play-making perspective and aspect of the game, the Celtics should tap into maybe working Brown and Tatum together off ball and using some back screen motions and using Horford in mismatch and hunting mismatch. But I really think the Celtics are underutilizing Drew Holiday. And it goes back to the point I was making. Every championship team needs sacrifices. Where's the sacrifice going to come? Because right now, Drew Holiday's he sacrifices his entire offensive game for the team. And I don't think that's the best route to a championship. Defensively, he's been great, but offensively, he's been super underutilized. And I look at a guy like Jaylen Brown. I don't think Jaylen Brown can be a 20-shot per game guy on this Celtics team to win a championship. He can be a 20-shot shot per game guy anywhere else in the league, and he can be very good at it. But with this constructed roster, with this team, he can't be. He needs to shift to a much different role. He needs to shift to a catch and shoot, efficient, fast, high motor pace guy. And it's just, I really think that's a change that needs to be made. I don't think it's going to be made, quite frankly. I don't see it happening. But I think in terms of how do the Celtics, what's the easiest path to fixing the problem? You got this phenomenal playmaker. Let him play make. Give him the ball. Let him facilitate. Let him make life easy for you, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Not everything has to be isolation and just working as hard as you can for getting your shots. You have two guys, really three. Porzingis is a good passer and can create out of that post. Make life easy for Brown and Tatum, but you just got to let Drew Holiday facilitate and give him the ball more. I really think that needs to be fixed.
Go ahead, Franco.
Oh, I was going to pass it to Ian, but I couldn't agree anymore.
The Celtics is what they need. The unselfishness.
Yeah, we're unselfishness. We're going to give the ball to everyone. We all four of us are 20-point scorers, but we just all need the ball. But Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are the scorers of this team. And the fact that we are running two guards, I would think that I feel like the Celtics utilized Marcus Smart more than Jrue Holiday. They used Marcus Smart last year more than they used Jrue Holiday this year, I feel. I mean, Jrue Holiday's been he's very quiet. He's just super quiet on the scoreboard, but it's still efficient. I mean, he only had 3 assists tonight when Tatum and Brown had 14 combined. I mean, he only had 1 turnover tonight when Tatum and Brown had 7 combined tonight.
Right.
The ball should be in the guards' hands. There's guards, wings, and centers for a reason in this league. And the guards are supposed to be facilitating. And I know Jrue Holiday would have absolutely no problem at all being that scorer because, honestly, if they are taking care of Tatum and Brown while they're off ball and locking down them as options, I have faith in Jrue Holiday and Derek White to take it ISO and get that easy bucket one-on-one.
It doesn't have to be all game. You don't have to do it all game. The entire 48 minutes doesn't need to be the exact same thing. And again, tonight, when you see a team like Indiana, Buddy Hield, Tyrese Halliburton, those are 2 questionable defenders. They're not phenomenal. Halliburton can be at times, but those are guys that you want to hunt out. And you allow Jrue Holiday to work the offense. He did it. He won an NBA championship doing it. He's going to put you in a position to succeed. And I think that at times, open up the game. Open up the half. All right, Drew, right? We're going to run pick and roll with you. We're going to use you as a P&R guy. Whatever it may be. Figure out a way to incorporate him passing the ball because I really do think that it needs to happen. However, guys, before we finish, you know the drill. Final thoughts, takeaways, a statement. If you've been dying to say it, I need to hear something from everyone.
Wait. Should we do player of the game real quick before we go? Final thoughts.
Oh, right. I completely forgot about that. Player of the game, you could argue it, 2 guys. I was thinking maybe Sam Hauser, but you know what? Tonight, it was Jason Tatum. Tonight, he was good. The stats are deceiving. He only had 23 points up until the last couple minutes. However, he was honestly phenomenal down the stretch for us. He really kept us alive in this game. His shot from beyond the arc wasn't falling. If it was, you could have seen that number 32 be much higher. However, 6 assists, 2 blocks, 12 rebounds, 32 points, shot efficient, 50%, 13 of 26 from the floor. Jason Tatum is tonight's player of the game. Guys, tonight we saw a little bit out of JT, some good, some bad. What did you like out of JT tonight?
Back to the basket.
I liked his aggressiveness in the second half, at least in the fourth quarter. He found out his 3-ball wasn't hitting, so he started shooting mid-range shots, and they started going in, and sadly he missed the 3 at the end, but the game was practically over at that point. But it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, he did a great job keeping the Celtics in the game. I will say something starting to get annoyed about, and I can talk more about the topic in the final thoughts. The free throw shooting is really starting to annoy me, not just from Tatum, but from Brown as well. I can expand more on that in the final thoughts, but overall, even though the Celtics lost, Tatum did have a great game.
Yeah, Jason Tatum, first off, in regards to the free throw shooting, I know Ian will probably have more on this later, but Tatum took half of our free throws tonight, and we only took 12. Not exactly great because we see a guy like Joel Embiid take about 12 a night, and we took 12 as a team. So, dang. But Jason Tatum, I want to give a little bit of a shout out. Now, he had a little bit of a meaningless turnover. The game was pretty well over at this point in time. It was late in the fourth quarter. He only had 2 turnovers tonight, and that was something we were really harping on him about earlier in the week, is that Jason Tatum, please, turnover numbers, cut them down. Because last game, we don't remember, 3 quarters he only played, was ejected before the fourth quarter, and he ended the night with 7 turnovers. What does it look like if he plays the fourth quarter? Does he reach over 10 turnovers for a game? That's absolutely ridiculous. But tonight, the Celtics, in a game where they turned the ball over 17 times to the Pacers 6. Huge discrepancy, by the way, just huge discrepancy. And I almost want to chalk it up to the Celtics were playing at the Pacers' pace. The Pacers knew they wanted to play at that pace, and the Celtics just could not contain their offense and just themselves at the end of the night. But I want to give Jason Tatum a shout out because although amidst those 17 turnovers, he only accounted for 2 of them, and one of them was quite meaningless at the end of the game. So that's great for Jason Tatum. And he did have double-digit rebounds at half. That being said, he finished with 12 on the night. It's only 2 rebounds in the second half. You want to see that number probably be a little bit higher, but you got to give him credit for what he did in the first half. He was huge. And I thought he made up a lot of the team's performance tonight as a whole. And Ian kind of mentioned it. He kept the Celtics in the game. Now, I know I said it was a game. It was a game all the way down until the end. However, we did lose by 10 points. But the Celtics, they ultimately had a chance in that game because of Jason Tatum. And you really felt as if in a lot of moments, Jason Tatum, he was our go-to guy, and you felt the ball actually did touch his hands in some moments in which it should have touched his hands. You want to see, especially late in the shot clock or late in quarter, late in the half, or just moments in which the team just appears stuck in the mud. You want to see the ball in Jason Tatum's hands in those moments. And I thought Jason Tatum tonight in those particular moments did at least have the ball and was particularly aggressive with it tonight. And he could have had, you look at this performance, 32 points on the night. He could have easily gone for 40 if his 3 ball was actually falling, because there were a couple of attempts in which were wide open. He, for some reason, just cannot make wide open threes. I don't know what the actual numbers are on those, but it just feels like he's not able to make those shots. But Jason Tatum, as a whole, was who you expect him to be, and that is an NBA superstar tonight, alongside Jaylen Brown, who was also nice as well. 14 of 23, 30. Want to mention him as well. He had 3 turnovers on the night. Jaylen Brown next to Jason Tatum.
All right. Final takeaways. I want to start us off though, because I do have a little checklist I want to get through. Friday night, we're going to be playing in the losers consolation game. Let that piss you off. Again, not a lot of stock into the in-season tournament. I think it's a fun, great, entertaining idea. However, I don't think it's, make or break. The best team is going to win this tournament. I think it's one game elimination. It's something new. It's different. You're going to see upsets because anything can happen in one basketball game. However, let that piss you off and use this as a growing opportunity. I really do think the Celtics have a golden chance, an opportunity this year to do something special. I really would like them to do it this year because it's killing me if they don't. Something else I do want to say is this kind of shows you how dynamic Kristaps Porzingis is for the Boston Celtics and how important he can be because we talk about making life easy and getting easy buckets and not working so hard. Kristaps Porzingis, who should maybe be ready. However, something tells me they might sit him due to the fact that it doesn't have in-season tournament cup potential and implications. However, it shows you how valuable Kristaps Porzingis is to this team after tonight's loss.
Yeah, tonight's loss, we should really kind of take with a grain of salt, but I really want this to hurt. I want this to not be a fun plane trip back to Boston.
Right.
Get those ugly plane trips out of the way as early as we possibly can. Now you guys know it's not going to go perfectly after all. The team is human, and there's going to be nights that Kristaps or even anyone else falls out of the rotation. So I think the bench needs to improve. I mean, Kornet has stepped up, and what these guys are niche players and are doing exactly what the Celtics quote unquote need, but like a little bit more versatility is necessary and dire for this bench to have any effect against teams that are able to run players like TJ McConnell, Aaron Nesmith, and Ben Mathurin off the bench and have 15, 16 points coming out of there. And I don't think the Celtics really even have to make a trade because it kind of feels like there's 3 to 4 players on this bench that kind of feel like they haven't even been unlocked yet. And I've been harping on it almost every game now. But we have Svi Mikhailou, O'Shea Brissett, and Lamar Stevens all sitting on our bench who are all 20 to 25 minute per game players last season and were efficient doing it. Imagine getting that efficiency off our bench. And sure, it's probably not because they feel ready for those guys and they kind of feel comfortable with Peyton Pritchard, Kornet, and Hauser because they've been so tenured and valuable to this team. But
right,
it's a shakeup that's going to be necessary, and I feel like those guys are going to be the ones to bring an impact.
Okay, so I have two things. One, I guess I'll talk about the free throw thing from earlier. Jaylen Brown last season shot 76.5% from the free throw line. This season, he's shooting 69.8%. Jason Tatum last year shot 85.4% from the free throw line, and this year is shooting 79.2% from the line. Now, we've been talking about those two getting to the rim, and that's great. And if you're going to get fouled, that's great. You're going to get free points. I don't know how bad. I really don't understand how you can drop off so hard when it comes to free throw shooting as your two best players who, like we said before, Jason Tatum is one of the best players at getting to the rim. You got to shoot free throws. You have to shoot them at a better clip. I'm sorry. You cannot be, at least in Jaylen Brown's case, you can't be under 70% from the free throw line.
right.
And if you're Jason Tatum, you really shouldn't be under 80% from the free throw line. It's really kind of annoying. And then the other thing I want to talk about, what if I told you that the Boston Celtics, when it comes to Drew Holiday's usage, is the same amount of usage that the Milwaukee Bucks were using Javon Carter. Remember Javon Carter on the Milwaukee Bucks? He is at the same level of usage with the Milwaukee Bucks that Drew Holiday is with the Boston Celtics.
That's pathetic.
It's wild to say, but it's 100% true. I was just scrolling and I saw the tweet, and their stats are insanely similar. And the Celtics did not trade for Javon Carter the last time I checked. So, like we said before, I think Franco said it, you have to use Drew Holiday more. You have to use Drew Holiday more because they did not trade for Javon Carter. They traded for Drew Holiday for a reason. So
Right.
Please use him more.
That is a mic drop right there. I mean, either Javon Carter is most improved player of the year or the Celtics straight up aren't using Drew Holiday enough. I mean, the numbers say it right there. I mean, it just in usage numbers comparable. Like That is insane. That's an insane find, Ian. That's an insane find. Um, to me, the Celtics, there's definitely a little bit of a. I just can't contain myself at this point anymore. I really can't. I really can't. We saw it the other night. In Los Angeles. Our former head coach going up against LeBron James, and everybody. I don't know. A lot of people maybe have seen.
Don't even
the
do it.
audio
Don't
clip.
even do it, man. Don't do it to us, man. Don't do it to us.
The
Don't
audio
do it
clip.
to us.
The audio clip. I don't know if that's real or not, but
Don't do it to
this
us.
team right now,
Not tonight, man. Not tonight.
specifically with this game tonight, it just annoys me that they don't. It doesn't feel like they're coming in with the correct intensity.
Like punch someone.
Orlando,
Stop.
in-season
Throw
tournament game.
hands.
Pacers, in-season tournament game. Now I know we can all say, "Oh, yes, they're for the young teams." We haven't won a title yet. We have not won a title, and I feel as if 2 years ago we came into a lot of games going, "No, we're not 18 and 21. We're the Boston effing Celtics. We're the Boston effing Celtics." And we come into each game, we're not 18 and 21. This team kind of seems like they have the vibe of, all right, we're clearly one of the best, and we're going to go win the championship. And I just don't feel as if night to night the intensity is there every single night. And I don't want to blame that on coaching, because ultimately it's up to the players to wake up and motivate themselves. But there is a coaching aspect to that. And I do wonder if there's the correct motivation or the correct vibe going on in the locker room. Not questioning that these guys like each other or anything, but I'm questioning the intensity that they walk into with these games, because I did question a little bit over the offseason when Marcus Smart was dealt away. We, of course, first dealed Malcolm Brogdon, and it seemed like we were going to keep Marcus Smart around. When we dealt him away, the year before we get rid of Udoka, and the year before, I don't know if everybody remembers, the voices were so big. It was about attaining voices, because in 2020, 2021, Brad Stevens, everybody was going, okay, his message was stale, and we didn't have Al Horford. So that offseason, Brad moves into the GM slot. We hire Ime, who's an amazing leader, an amazing basketball leader, amazing basketball mind. We bring back Al Horford. Marcus Smart is still in the building, and we refurbish the voices in the building, the personalities in the building. Al Horford's still around, but we saw 18-19. He's not going to be the huge verbal, vocal guy. He leads by example. Marcus Smart was a huge verbal guy. Udoka, head coach, obviously, huge verbal guy. Those guys aren't around anymore. Marcus Smart shipped out last offseason. Udoka basically, before last season. And I'm not saying Porzingis, Holiday, Derek White, Brown, Tatum, Horford, one of them can't do it, can't step up, this team can't be intense together. But it just felt like, to me, coming into this season, we lacked an intense personality. Just kind of felt like we lacked that. I don't want to say that, I feel like people would be like, well, what about Drew Holiday? What about Drew Holiday? I think he's a very intense defender. I don't think he's an intense personality outside the court. I really don't. I think he's more laid back. And I really do wonder for this team if there's somebody on the roster or even on the coaching staff who is ready to bring this team into the playoffs and into the further, first the regular season, the rest of the regular season, and then into the playoffs, and bring the intensity with them. Because I look at this game tonight, I look at the Orlando game, and those are two games that I understand everybody, okay, Mickey Mouse trophy, whatever, right? Twitter, X. But these are games that I want to see the Celtics compete in. I want to see them be intense. And that's why I love the Chicago game, is because the Celtics came out in that game and went, we're going to make the in-season tournament. We're going to go for as many points as possible and make the in-season tournament and keep the intensity level. And Chicago was ultimately no match for us. That team is is just at their end as currently constructed. They're going to be done very, very soon. But the Boston Celtics, the intensity level just annoys me so far with
For
this
sure.
team. And for as good as their numbers are across the board, and for as highly touted as they are, and for as highly ranked, I believe they're actually first in the power rankings right now in the NBA, if I'm not mistaken, as of today, as of Monday, December 4th. For all of this, their intensity just doesn't strike me the way past teams have. And I wonder if that changes throughout the season. I wonder if that changes with an addition. I wonder if that changes with a subtraction. Who knows later on down the line? We are 15-5, still a great spot to be in. But that is just something that really has been annoying me with this team lately, is that their intensity just doesn't seem like it's properly there on a nightly basis.
For sure. And again, it's so early. It's just, I said it earlier, circle things, bookmark them, and check in on them throughout the season, because the idea is that you can check them off, all of them off, or at least a majority of them, right? No team's perfect, but for when April rolls around. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us in. The Boston Celtics did fall short in the knockouts round of the in-season tournament tonight, 122 to 112 in Indiana. Jason Tatum was tonight's player of the game. He had 32 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists. The Boston Celtics will play Friday night. They will play the loser of that New York Knicks versus Milwaukee Bucks game. You can come back right here and catch us live for Celtics Talk Weekly post game. Guys, I'm Rob. Next to me is Franco. Below me is Seamus, and right down there is my boy Ian. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, go Celtics.